A long, long time ago, I can still remember.
Is a mariachi band, is that
The way the mariachi made me
a
cry.
snobbish thing or a slobbish thing?
Oh, I don't
From
know.
Slovenia, I guess.
Slovenia. Hello and welcome to Mount Rushmore. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my slovenly friend Richard.
Hello.
And
burp.
Oh gosh, get a load of this guy. And my snobbish, Yaley, upper crust, aristocratic, ascot-wearing friend Michael.
How do you do?
Today's category is slobs versus snobs and how they're depicted in entertainment and literature and all that stuff. Now, I chose this because I think it feels distinctly, if not uniquely, American. The slobs and snobs, haves and have-nots, these are players. But the game is about getting yours. It's about getting your piece of the pie and shaking up the establishment. And that's, gosh darn it, what this country is about, for better or for worse. And it feels like a lot of worse lately. What could be more uniquely American than like the Titanic, a film about a struggling artist seducing an aristocratic chick on his way to the new world? I mean, he's coming from a country with an actual class system that you can't break to a world where you can be whatever you want. He leaves the slobs in steerage class and sleeps with a snob. So I love this category for that reason, and I want to hear what you guys think exemplifies this category. So let's go at it. And these guys are fighting not just today for the Mount Rushmore, to be on the top of Mount Rushmore, to win the Mount Rushmore, but for the Murray Award. As Bill Murray was the star of many of these things, I have had chiseled into granite a Bill Murray statue. So the winner.
That's good looking, by the way. The pockmarks, you could really see them.
Yeah, the acne scarring.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anybody who just feels like jumping on this first?
Well, I will go first since you mentioned Bill Murray.
Oh, okay.
One of my choices is the movie Meatballs.
Already winning.
It's not fair.
Already winning.
I guess if you like, hit a home run on your first pick. Not that this is a home run. Everybody.
This is
Jeff.
It's already a solid double. You didn't even have to say anything.
Right.
Top of the inning. Yeah, we don't have to.
Meatballs, the directed by Ivan Reitman, first of several Ivan Reitman Bill Murray jams. And it's one of those movies where I remember really, really liking it as a kid when it would come on like HBO, like at 10 o'clock at night. And I kind of thought, well, this probably didn't hold up very well. And I went and rewatched it as we were getting ready for this episode. And it's pretty good.
Is it?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much just, let's let Bill Murray just be Bill Murray circa 1979 for like 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
And is that like the first like summer camp slobs versus snobs?
No, you're thinking of summer camp, slobs versus snobs.
Oh, damn.
That's like Ballistic X versus slobs.
I think it might have been just about the first one. Like when you think of the trope of those type of movies that
played out in Wet Hot.
The losing the
Wet Hot,
virginity. I also think that was maybe the first of this new breed in which the cast of Saturday Night Live had been anointed the elite comedy performers. And they had established that in Animal House. And to hear Reitman talk about his experience with Animal House, he did everything, produced this thing, and then walked away with virtually like none of the credit.
Right,
and
they wouldn't let him direct it.
Yeah, and so now he's kind of SOL, and he just finds this kind of cheapo summer camp comedy, and then Murray wouldn't even agree to be in it until 2 days before they
didn't know if he was going to show up.
They had no idea.
His history of being Bill Murray and no one knowing if he's actually doing the movie till he gets there starts. Almost literally with his first movie. At that point, I mean, he was, he wasn't even to some extent. Who's opened up a beer here?
I'm sorry, that's a beer. It's a brewski.
Slob.
Damn slob.
Hey, at any time, just call out if
somebody does something slobbery
or snobbery. Mm-hmm. That's fine.
No, because keep in mind he wasn't part of that initial Saturday Night Live cast, and so he was for a long time kind of like not the outcast, but sort of the oddball.
Which is
he
funny.
He was the new kid.
Yeah, exactly.
He was replacing Chevy Chase,
snob,
who was the snob. So I think that's really interesting. And Chevy Chase was going to play Otter in Animal House, but they wouldn't let him. So,
right.
So I do find that fascinating. So he wasn't, but he was yet to be proven box office.
Right. Gold. I mean, he was still. I mean, Ivan Reitman basically says, look, he was the nobodiest of nobodies.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they'd walk around New York together, and he would just be doing Bill Murray stuff, going into restaurants and doing the "Can I get a cheeseburger, please?" type of stuff.
Yeah.
And just people would immediately gravitate to him, even though, nobody really knew who the hell he was.
That happens with all yelling, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone's just yelling, people just go like, who's that yelling?
It must be somebody famous.
Or in trouble.
Right.
I feel like one reason why Richard is in the lead right now, other than choosing Meatballs, is also choosing the film that this Murray statue, which is right here, it's a real thing, this Murray statue, which Bill Murray, who went to be the kind of, I guess, almost to the Reitmans of the genre, his Robert De Niro, his guy that he brought into all these films.
Right.
But he also set this genre that's very Capra-esque, in which he gave a monologue that talked about class warfare.
Yeah, absolutely.
These Camp North Star guys, they're going to steal all the good-looking girls anyway.
Right.
We're the mutts. There's something seriously wrong with us.
They're going to win, and it just
doesn't matter. Yeah. That
whole
set
speech,
the pace for this signature part of those films that he picked up in Caddyshack, and I think he did in
Stripes.
Stripes. Yeah. Stripes, not Caddyshack.
Yeah, he gives the speech in Stripes about, the U.S., we're the mongrels, the dogs and all that stuff.
Yeah. And that feels, for me, kind of a cornerstone of that genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the one thing I found interesting, doing a little bit of not much research, but apparently his look for the whole movie, kind of the Hawaiian shirt and shorts and the hat, that just happened to be what he was wearing the first day he showed up on set.
Yeah.
Because he just
Slob.
he just showed up, like we said, didn't knew he's coming till the day of. He just sort of shows up. They look at him and go, "Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's go with it." So I don't know how much of that role necessarily was a stretch for Bill Murray in 1979.
Yeah. I think also the archetypes that are created amongst the slob counselors in training in that film.
Right.
There's like the kid who's kind of like the athlete.
You got the fat kid.
Yeah.
You got the spaz kid. You got the ladies' man.
Yeah.
You kind of got all these archetypes.
Which
you've got Chris Makepeace.
Chris Makepeace.
Whatever happened to him?
I think he was in My Bodyguard.
Yeah.
And then,
he was kind of a thing for a little while.
Yeah.
So Chris Makepeace, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the show. Call up.
Please also download and subscribe and listen to all our episodes. Okay, so I'm going to put another statue called the Makepeace next to the Murray, and then the person who loses can get the Makepeace. Michael, what's your first choice?
Well, from one Bill Murray movie to another, mine is Caddyshack.
Okay, now you're the winner.
Which, there you go. Done.
What the tagline was? What was the tagline for it? Do you remember?
No.
Slobs versus Snobs.
Oh, well, there you go. Nailed it.
Okay, all right.
This movie is just kind of replete with that. It's not just like the Rodney Dangerfield, like Al Czarek? How do you say it? Al Czarek?
Al Czarek, I think.
Yeah, something. It's not just his character versus Judge Smales. It's Danny as the caddy and the lower class working kid versus the country club and against Judge Smales.
Yeah,
and his kid.
And it's the entire like staff versus the country club.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's even Ty who kind of plays both sides. He's kind of both this rich snob guy, but he's also kind of...
Well, he's rich, but he's not necessarily a snob.
Yeah, he kind of can straddle both lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Bill Murray character is...
Total snob.
Yeah.
Or slob.
Also so like this movie is just like, it's not... You think that it's just like this one kind of nouveau rich guy coming in and wanting to take over, or wanting to prove that he is on par with Judge Smales, but it's everyone versus this country club. This country club is the epitome.
Yeah.
And everyone that belongs to it and everyone that supports it, everyone that supports it is a lower class, and everyone that attends it generally is.
And at the end, it just gets blown up. Literally gets blown up real good.
There's also a seduction of Danny by the upper class, because there's Ty, who kind of represents both, who almost lets him know that the drugs and the rock and roll, all that stuff can happen in this upper class. But Judge Smalls kind of seduces him, but he's also seduced by the hot chick, right? He's maybe knocked up
Lacey Underdalls, yeah.
He's maybe knocked up the actual little Irish immigrant girl who represents his class.
His class.
Yeah, thanks for nothing.
Thanks for nothing. I'm also in Animal House without an accent.
Right.
Wow, how is that?
Yeah, ultimately, I guess it is Danny's morals that are on the line because he has to make the choice at the end whether he's going to, play for Al
Yeah.
or not. And, kind of Smales threatens him with that scholarship. He's like, "You're never going to get this scholarship." And he
The
ultimately...
world needs ditch diggers too.
And he ultimately chooses, I guess,
Yeah.
The blue collar side or
Yeah.
the good side, the quote unquote good side. I guess though, as the snob here on this podcast today, I should side with Smales because it is kind of unfair
Yeah.
Yeah.
that what's his name fakes an injury and then brings in the hotshot kid and cheats his way on there, and then the only way that he wins is via explosion.
Yeah.
And the ball goes in. Like, isn't there a time limit for how long a golf ball?
I feel like that explosions are against the rules. I'm not sure. I'd have to break out my rules of
Let me look
golf.
through the PGA
but yeah.
Addendum to 2003.
Right.
So I kind of, I shouldn't side with the rich people here, but a little bit I do.
So
Yeah.
is the gopher a slob or a snob?
Oh.
I think he's a snob, right? Because he's kind of taunting Carl Spackler. It's like,
Yeah, he's living the good life on this golf course. He doesn't want any other gophers on there.
he's living off the backs of others.
Yeah.
Fuck that gopher.
Fucking snob. My man.
Well, that definitely-
that movie does end with just the best line, which is like, everybody, we're all gonna get laid. Just so it's out of nowhere.
and then segueing right into some Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Because when you think I'm gonna get laid, Kenny Loggins.
There's so many things in the movie that seem to separate itself from the cinematic through line to the point where it's like a cartoon where you think, did that really happen? Like Rodney Dangerfield is this force of weirdness throughout the whole thing where, so what? So let's dance. And he opens up his golf bag and plays Any Way You Want It, That's the Way. And like,
Nice hat. Did you get a bowl of soup with it?
bowl of soup. You must have been something before electricity. Just doing his own thing. Completely.
Was that the movie
irrespective.
that he had like the electronic gizmo, or is that Caddyshack too?
No, that's Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
like the clubs will pop out.
Yeah.
And he's got the rangefinder and the
Yeah.
whole 9
Yeah.
yards. Yeah.
What a fucking cheater too.
Yeah, totally.
The role Murray plays in this one too is he's got that whole kind of monologue. You're lean, you're mean, you're not too far between, and also the bit about the llama, which is repeated by your frat buddy friends and people who are not really funny throughout most of your life.
Or also repeated as the coming out of nowhere. You need to mash
the
Cinderella boy. Everyone can do that.
Yeah.
Fairly decently.
But at that one point, he basically says, we killed the golfers. So if there's ever a snobs versus slobs moment there's actual revenge that he is going for. Okay, so Michael and Richard have both come out really pleasing the judge. And I see the statue. Oh, my God, it's smiling, you guys. How can granite change its form?
Well, it's kind of a little Bill Murray sort of like half smile.
Oh, that's right.
Spoiler alert, this thing is made out of jelly beans
Ah, shit.
that Jeff is massaging this entire time.
I like jelly beans.
So, Richard, what's your second?
So since I think we've mentioned it a couple of times already here, my second one is Animal House. I rewatched fairly
The
recently.
movie or the house?
Not the TV show and not the house. A house
house
full of
made of
animals.
Oh, it smells like urine. Such a good movie.
Yeah, like I said, I rewatched it actually a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't not even about around this, and it's just one of those movies where there's not really a sour beat in it.
Yeah.
And again, another story of sort of a group of a lot of times these movies do involve sort of teenagers or just slightly older than teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it boils down not just to snobs versus slobs, but this seems to have kind of an age gap in a lot of these sort of movies.
Yeah.
Just sort of them versus the other frats. It's also them versus the university and the town.
They
do I need to say anything about Animal House? It's a fucking Animal House.
They also
guys.
see the boundaries. There's snobs and there's slobs, and there's Otis Day and the Knights, and the Dexter Lake boarding house or whatever that club is that they go to, where they realize that Otis doesn't love them as much as they think.
Otis, my man.
And they realize
You are leaving.
They realize that whether they're slobs or snobs, they exist in this academic, intellectual balloon that gets burst when they step out.
It is a pretty towering work of like white male privilege.
Yeah.
When you get right down to it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, their bullshit should have been called, and they should have been kicked out.
Yeah.
We're rooting for them in spite of the fact that they're assholes.
Yeah. Within the echelon of snobs or slobs, there's the hierarchy as well. So within the Delta Chi Tau, fraternity, there's animal or Blutos, right? Bluto.
Not blue.
Bluto.
was Popeye? Do we just go into that?
There's there's Otter and there's Hoover and all these characters who seem more collegiate and seem more polished, and they could represent the fraternity.
Or Boone.
Yeah. So they're the sweater wearing, chino wearing, kind of typical college student we think of that time.
Right.
But then there's a guy like Stork and a guy like Bluto, D-Day, these guys who are just out of control. And
D-Day, who was originally supposed to be
Dan Aykroyd.
Go.
I think that's so amazing. I remember as a kid thinking, he reminds me of Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah,
Why is he not
they totally just went and cast the most Dan Aykroyd looking guy they could possibly get.
So within the world of the slobs, there are some people who could consider themselves above the others.
Sure.
But we love them because they don't, because they're brothers with these other slobs.
Yeah, some of them got better grades than others.
I imagine.
You know, then when they could do the whole the readout of everyone's grades, like I think like Boone and somebody else, maybe it's Otter had like 2.2s or just barely passing, and then like doesn't Bluto like he didn't even go to class. Basically, he doesn't have like a grade or something like that.
And he also gets the monologue. There's the
Germans bombed Pearl Harbor bit.
Yeah. It's not over until we say it is.
And then becomes Senator at the end.
Yeah.
It's strange to think of. This isn't on my list, and maybe it should have been. And I'm kicking myself, and I'm sorry, Emily. But I was thinking of not Broken Away.
Breaking Away.
Breaking Away. Thank you. And,
Spirited Away.
Yeah,
Let's just take lots of guesses.
Miyazaki movie. Of Breaking Away. I went to college. I didn't feel like there was like this big us versus them sort of thing going to school, even amongst like fraternities. I didn't think as a class thing at UCSB, but maybe that was because it was UCSB, and maybe there was still a big fraternity to it, but I just didn't care or it didn't affect me. And I was thinking of like in Breaking Away when you have like the Cutters versus like just the school itself. And there was this big class warfare. But like, I don't have that sort of reference of growing up within that.
Right.
At USC, did they have that sort of like?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's a pretty big commuter school. So you'd have a lot of people who just showed up, did their classes and left. So it wasn't.
Everyone wasn't in the college town.
Yeah, it was like a college town, and it was even people who lived near campus. I mean, near campus could be, 10 minutes away or something like that. I mean, there were the frats when I lived directly behind the frats for most of my time there. And I don't know, I definitely was there was a class system. I mean, you had people
Going to class.
Sort of. what they tell me at least. But you did have clearly the kids that were there on scholarship or the kids that were paying their way through versus the kids who clearly were there because mom and dad had enough money to be able to, so they could afford to get into USC.
Yeah. I think college as a setting for a slobs versus snobs is interesting because in some of the cases, we don't even feel the impact of the snobbery that might be put upon us because it's literally in another system. It's all so far away. But yeah, I do remember there was a rich dorm or something like that. And then there was the kind of cheaper dorm that was across, and there was literal warfare happening between water balloons and things like that between those. But yeah, I didn't really see it.
They were
that much.
filled with Perrier.
We're not animals. Okay, what's your second?
My second one is the movie Demolition Man.
Oh wow!
Whoa,
that's awesome.
Deep cut.
In the future, the world is a mess.
Yes.
This is like 2032.
It's kind of dystopian,
Yeah.
one might say.
One might. A huge earthquake ravaged Los Angeles in the year 2010, so 7 years ago. And there's a mega city that was formed called San Angeles. That city was like a utopia. Utopia's idea was Dr. Cocteau. he was this very peaceful. He was very pacifistic. Is that kind of the right word? Is that a word? He was a
Passive?
Pacifistic.
Okay.
Pacifistic. I guess so. Maybe that's not even a word.
Word snob.
Between cocto and fistic, I'm just kind of raging hard on right now.
Anyway, this is like this idealized portion of the world. And in that world, though, there's like a grimy underbelly. There are the people that live in the sewers, the people that don't want to adhere to the new rules and regulations of society.
Are these the people who don't use the 3 shells?
Those are the people that don't use
Whatever
the
the fuck they're
shells.
supposed to be used for.
They want to eat what they want to eat,
Not just Taco Bell.
not just Taco Bell. Led by Edgar Friendly, a.k.a. Dennis Leary, who in this movie gives like the most ridiculous Dennis Leary sort of anti-government, pro-freedom. It was like right in the heyday of it, like his
Leary doing Carlin, doing Leary.
Yeah.
Doing Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
Do you think they even just scripted that, or they just have like they just had like a break in the script that said Dennis Leary to talk for 5 minutes about come back.
Basically this perfect society that is just this facade over the real world, and it's these slobs. What I liked about this movie, I mean, it's just a wonderful movie. I was reading about it a little bit, I was sitting here thinking back about it, and they needed a slob, also this the Sylvester Stallone John Spartan character, this guy that they kind of refer to as like a gorilla and a caveman, to come back and kind of take on this adversary of just Simon Phoenix, the Wesley Snipes character, in like this new world where they don't know how to do it at this point. They're so perfected and they're so pristine that it's they don't have guns. They
The
don't
war
have
has
real
been
weapons.
bred out of them. Yeah. Like if I had to make chicken, I would have to kill a chicken. I can't do that.
I don't think they eat meat.
I don't know how to catch a
either.
chicken.
But I like the idea of like the snobbishness of society is like you have to fall in line, and then people coming in and trying to disrupt that because they don't believe in that for one, and then ultimately them having to rely on so it's just a little thing mumbling through one of the best movies from the 90s.
What do you guys from? Yeah, a lot. I think the side of his mouth was at maximum pitch and angle in that movie.
Was there ever? I feel like that movie and Judge Dredd turned into one movie in my brain.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have done both those movies at the same time, which it's funny because like one is a kind of about a police state and one is more of like this utopian state, but they're all about control and breaking away from control.
Let me ask you this: has there, when I think of snobs and slobs stories, there's often a caste or class element to it. Have there ever been snobs versus slobs in the same class or in the same caste? Like all things being equal in terms of economics, has there ever been a thing where the person was literally just a slob versus somebody?
Odd Couple?
I mean,
Odd Couple.
Did they make
I
the same amount of money?
I guess they did. I would suspect. I mean,
I don't know.
I think being a sports writer back in the 60s for a major New York newspaper, he probably did okay.
Yeah.
And then, Felix was a lawyer of some sort, or I mean, they both had to live together, so I can't assume. I assume they were pretty close.
Paying equal rent.
Basically. Yeah. Neither seemed to be the top or the bottom per se in that financially in that relationship.
So economics wasn't a factor. It wasn't like royalty versus a peasantry. It was actual class.
Right, or actual slobbery.
Yeah.
It was, and to some extent, sort of a very antiquated version of masculinity versus, male femininity.
Yeah. So that was Demolition Man was great. I think Snipes. I did think Snipes and Stallone were actually pretty good matches in that movie. Like the fight scenes were so great. Like
the movie is weirdly wonderful. There's this strange sense of like kind of reverse 1984 doublespeak where things aren't, where everything is made nice. Like everything that they do is to kind of gloss over how awful things kind of are.
Yeah.
With like having like a double nice day. And you're just like, what is this weird movie? What is this weird society? Like it seems awful to live in. Like no wonder people kind of rejected it and lived in the sewers. But I I mean, just the two names, just Simon Phoenix and John Spartan. It's just like, who's the
ad wizard who came up with that one.
It was just like, you know what? 100% this is their name. That's badass. But yeah, their fight scenes were good, and they kind of their repartee back and forth was on par with the best kind of action movies of the mid-90s.
How would you rank it in terms of Rob Schneider movies?
Holy crap!
Among the best.
It's up there. It's probably his.
You know how I got jammed in that movie? Actually, it's Benjamin Bratt. All the other characters have kick-ass names. Him, Alfredo Garcia. They just give up at that point. We need a Hispanic name.
That could be on the menu at Olive Garden.
Right. Garcia, I don't know.
Yeah, that's when you go to a Mexican place that serves like American food as well.
Yeah.
It's like you can get a hamburger, you can also get Alfredo Garcia.
There was also something where I think Wesley Snipes had somehow quoted himself in that movie, because didn't he say, "See you, what I wouldn't want to be ya"? And I think there's some other movie, like a Spike Lee movie, where he actually says that too. So it was.
Does he say something about always betting on black?
No, oh my gosh. Passenger 57. Okay, so we are at our halftime, and this has been a fun little romp through the film history of Snobs versus Slobs. Don't be a slob. Don't be a snob. Just be a fob, a friend of... Oh, shit. I couldn't even make something come out of that.
You were so good.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Be a FOM, a friend of Mount Rushmore podcast. Rate and review. You could be a slob or you could be a snob. You could rate us a 5, and because you are a slob who loves just kind of any recorded media, or be a snob and rate us a 1. I don't care. Just and leave a rating. You could use your erudite upper crust 5-syllable words, or you can just be like the last slob who just wrote pretty good.
If you're a snob, just get your assistant to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're a slob,
just mash your hands against the keyboard.
You can just download the first one and just let it keep playing for the other ones because you're too lazy or covered in Cheetos to actually go turn it off. That's fine too.
Either way. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also MySpace. I'm sure there's a Mount Rushmore something on there. Maybe the DJ Rushmore.
We'll ask Tom, see if he can get it set up for us.
Okay, so we are back. It was Michael Richard. No, it's Richard.
Be my turn. And I went with a golf one, but it is not the movie Caddyshack.
Oh, shit.
It is not the movie Caddyshack 2.
Okay.
It is John Daly.
I don't know this.
Golfer, John Daly.
Oh, the golfer. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a mess, right?
A giant fucking mess. Kind of if you took a redneck from if you took basically Cletus the Slingshot Yokel and trained him to be able to hit a golf ball 350 yards and gave him a lot of alcohol, you pretty much have John Daly.
Okay.
So he kind of burst on the scene in 1991. He won the PGA Championship, one of the 4 majors. He was the 9th alternate into the field, so 9 other people had to drop out before he even got a chance.
Okay.
And he was just this kind of real heavyset, mulleted, good old boy from Arkansas.
Keep talking.
Who could just mash the shit out of the ball. And he just his backswing was so if you know anything about golf, your backswing, you try and keep it nice and level and smooth. He just basically got the club basically until it almost hit his butt. And then just swing as hard as he could. It was this violent,
You should see Richard right now. He looks like a gorilla, just swinging a tree branch, like trying to shoo away some little chimpanzee getting towards his banana or something. But
that's my golf swing. Okay, it works for me. And wound up winning this tournament, kind of just coming out of nowhere. And he was pretty much everything that golf wasn't at that point. Like I said, he was this kind of good old boy from Arkansas. He smoked like 2 or 3 packs a day, even on the golf course. So basically he would smoke as he's walking up the fairway, hand it to his caddy, hit a shot, get the cigarette back and keep going.
That's awesome.
Wound up winning also the 1995 British Open. And after he won it, he filled the claret jug, which is the trophy that they win, with chocolate ice cream and chocolate sauce.
Oh, jeez.
And ate a sundae out of it. After he won the PGA Championship, they got a couple of his friends and his agent. They got into a limousine and went straight to a McDonald's.
Wow.
So this tells you a little
Wow.
bit about John Daly. One thing another story I heard about him. So after the third round of the PGA Championship that he wound up going to an Indianapolis Colts preseason game because the tournament was somewhere in Indiana near there. And the owner, Bob Irsay, comes up to him and says, "Hey, did you used to play football?" And he said, "Yeah, I was like a field goal kicker in high school." So they actually were going to work something out to have him actually suit up for the Colts as a place kicker and like kick. And this was in between before the final round of this first championship that he won.
Oh, wow.
This is just how his brain works. I'm trying to think of some of the stories here. Oh, when he first got to college at Arkansas, his coach thought he was way too much. So his diet, the only thing he ate was Jack Daniels and popcorn.
What the hell?
And he dropped 70 pounds, gained most of it probably in his liver. And he was constantly a pain in the ass for the PGA Tour because he would engage in activities that, let's say, was conduct unbecoming a championship golfer.
Okay.
He opened up a golf course somewhere in Arkansas, and they had the news come out to do a segment with him. And he just was out there shirtless, like big gut, no shirt on, talking to him, went and played around with the reporter, no shirt on, drinking something out of his cup and smoking the whole time.
Was he related to Jimmy Carter or something like that? He seems like
you know what? It is very, if you've never seen John Daly, if you could picture Billy Carter, you've got a pretty decent image of what John Daly was like. Got suspended several occasions from the PGA Tour for just doing, things like at Pro-Ams hitting golf balls off of beer cans that people would hold in their mouths. And generally palling around with a Kid Rock.
Okay, I was wondering what he was going to.
Yeah, and would just do stuff like he became the real life Tin Cup, whatever his name is. He did a tournament and he hit 6 balls into the water, trying to get on to. Just kept hitting balls into the water over and over and over again. Had a history of doing that. Shot a 14 one time at the 2000 U.S. Open.
Wow, he's got some haircut on him.
It is the ultra mullet.
Shot a 14-1 hole?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
On a par 5.
Yeah.
In a tournament in Australia, he made a triple bogey on his last hole, then threw his putter into the lake, and then ball into the lake, and then didn't sign for the scorecard, and cursed everyone out and just walked away. Major gambling problem. I'm trying to find the exact number. He claims to have lost between $50 to $60 million over the last 15 years.
Wow.
In 2005, he won about $750,000 for coming in second in a tournament. And then immediately went out to Las Vegas and lost $1.5 million.
I love this guy.
Spent on a $5,000 slot machine.
A $5,000.
I didn't know those things existed. I get above $1 slots, and I'm like,
Seems like something that they kind of made it when they saw him walking in.
How much is the slot machine?
5,000. What is it perceived that John Daly is out to shake up the stuffy establishment of the PGA, or is he just who being John?
He's just John Daly. His slogan is "Grip it and rip it."
Okay.
One of his best friends actually said something right after he had, I think it's after he'd lost that $1.5 million. Asked him how he was doing, and he just said, "I came into this world with nothing. I'm going out with nothing. I'm going to have a hell of a time in between." That's basically his. He won a $150,000 bet with Fuzzy Zoeller, another golfer, because Fuzzy Zoeller bet him that he would not live long enough to play on the Champions Tour, which is age 50, and he just started playing there. So when people are making bets with you on whether you'll make it to age 50 or not
your golf prowess.
You're not exactly Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer out there.
Wow, sounds like a little bit of a character there.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Michael.
My next is Fraiser and Niles Crane
Oh, fun.
Ooh, nice.
versus Martin Crane, their
Okay.
father from
All
the
right.
show Fraiser.
That's awesome.
This show really transcended Cheers. I don't know. Is it better than Cheers? It's hard to say. I think it was written better than Cheers.
No, I can say that. No.
But I don't enjoy it as much. I know that I'm shooting myself in the foot to start it off, but I think that the characterization of Fraiser took off in his own show. Like he was always the elitist amongst the Cheers crowd, but then you paired him up with his brother,
Right, who's even more of
who's even
snob.
more elitist, and Fraiser looked somewhat normal.
Yeah.
But then you contrasted them against their like blue collar ex cop father Martin, and he kind of shone again. Like he kind of shined again. I mean, he was still dulled by Niles's effeminate ways and putting napkins down on any seat he sat on.
Yeah.
But having like their father move in with him in like the first episode or first 2 episodes, and seeing their lifestyles change, and you kind of see like the class warfare there, where the slob of his father moved in. Slob's kind of too harsh. He was just set in his ways, and like I said, blue collar, and he brought his awful chair into Fraiser's kind of pristine apartment. That was everything was dutifully picked out and it was very precisely placed and was to set up a certain feng shui, and then this awful chair.
Yeah. I love when you get to see, so when a film addresses the backstory often of a villain, like you get to see, although Fraiser clearly isn't the villain, but you see his development and who he is as a reaction to who the people around him were. And that I find fascinating because you get more dimension. One
of the interesting things in the show, and they did it in Cheers as well, is they kind of would establish like female characters off screen.
Yeah.
Whether it was
like Norm's wife.
Or with like Niles, his wife. You never see her, and she's always just kind of referred to as like this strange bird-like, very brittle creature. But then the same thing happened with like Martin's wife and Fraiser and Niles' mother, who was very much like Fraiser. She was very much upper class and wealthy, and I think she was also like a researcher, a psychiatrist or something, that Martin was attracted to, obviously. But then the 2 sons that came out were more like her than him. Yeah. And, he kind of distanced themselves. And I don't know. The portrayal is just perfect of Martin. And then I think the 2 boys as well.
Right.
What's great about that is that often we've described instances where the differences were played for comedy, and in that, played for an antagonistic difference was played for comedy, or in sometimes drama because it's conflict, and then in this it's so much played for comedy. Yeah, more than conflict. So
interesting too, though, it wasn't just like his father that was like this kind of slovenly. Character. Like his producer Roz was kind of this, a little bit more crass. Yeah, and Bulldog, who's another
the sports guy,
at the radio station, also super crass. Martin's nurse Daphne, who also moved into the apartment, who was also like this. She was from the south side of London and very
kind of Cockney, kind of Eliza Doolittle.
Yes. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, Fraiser, who kind of tries to establish his new life and tries to have it perfect, is upended by not just his father, but all of his coworkers, the woman that he's hired to take care of his father, and the only one that he can kind of relate to is his brother. Yeah. And ultimately, within that show, in spite of being like psychiatrists, they're usually wrong about every situation. They can't read a situation. Yeah. And it's his cop detective. I don't know if it was detective. But
detective. I think it was detective. Yeah.
It was like his cop father, who's kind of just shows him how things really are, or kind of is, the more empathic of everyone, except when it comes to his own emotions, and then he's wildly off.
That seems to be kind of the trope. There is that ultimately the 2 are presenting 2 sides of one story, or 2 sides of the world, and that they can learn from each other. I love that in the theme song. I remember spending most of my understanding of that show wondering who the fuck are tossed salad and scrambled eggs, and realizing it's kind of Fraiser and his dad. Like, dad's
what?
kind of Dad's kind of scrambled eggs, and Fraiser's kind of tossed salad.
What?
That is
in the lyrics.
That is an amazing read.
Yeah, that is.
it's, I mean, because
My mind blown totally of shutting down.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard,
All right, this is my last one. My last one.
your
Right?
last one.
So my last one is the song "Common People" by Pulp.
Oh,
I don't know this one.
this is great.
Yeah,
This leads into mine. But
does it?
Yeah, in a way.
that's pretty good.
In a way.
So this was, I guess, Pulp's most well-known song. I
Yeah.
think we would say by far. Probably, maybe not. Probably even in England, I would say. Pulp were I guess you would say Britpop band, but they had been doing it for like 10, 15 years.
Since 1980 or so.
Yeah, off and on.
Yeah.
And hadn't had a ton of success.
They have a great collection of their songs called Countdown
Right.
that is just perfect. That, like has everything up until Common People.
Common People. And so
Or
different
different class, yeah.
Yeah. Jarvis Cocker, the lead singer, had taken a break from the band for a while and had gone to St. Martin's College, which is an art college in London, and wound up having a conversation with this girl who was an exchange student who was there. She was Greek, was at a bar with her, and she made some sort of comment like, "Oh, I'm thinking about moving," and she came from a very rich background, and made some sort of comment like, "Oh, I'm thinking about moving to, I think it's Hackney or something like that. One of those. It's a very like blue collar, lower class neighborhood in London." And so she said, like, "Yeah, I just want to find out what it's like to live with common people." And that kind of just took him so far back. Like, why the hell would you want to live like a poor person?
Mm-hmm.
Poor people don't want to live but poor people.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is not a
Yeah.
this is not a fashion choice, or this is not something that's aspirational or that people sort of revel in. So he kind of used that as the inspiration. And those kind of that whole setup is actually the first verse in the song. And the whole song is just basically about
Him taking her through his world.
yeah,
Or that's
And she
or
just doesn't
the world
get
of the
it.
poor. That's not very fun. It's very difficult, and you have to make these choices in life
and
that
it's
are
and it's sort of him singing to her about like, you'll never understand what it's like, to be poor, because you could make a call to your dad and he could
Yeah.
fix it.
This song is on my Mount Rushmore of songs I love to karaoke, but ultimately get tripped up because they play a shorter version of it.
Ooh, yeah.
100% they have a shorter version of the song that like edits
There's a
that.
single version, then there's the LP version.
Yeah. And I always get thrown off because it cuts out like the last verse or
Right.
one small section. And it's like, I love singing the song. And then, oh my God, they screwed it up. And I'm always mad at the end of it.
Also on the Rushmore.
Never learned my lesson.
Also on the Rushmore of songs that have a deceptively long instrumental break in the middle when you're karaokeing. So you're kind of just stuck there, kind of shaking your ass like Jarvis Cocker at the enemies or something.
You're angry that you drank your gin and tonic way too fast at the beginning of the song. You're standing up.
You're actually debating whether or not you can order another gin and tonic before the vocal part starts again. The song famously covered by William Shatner.
What was it? Oh, yeah. That's the latest.
With
weird one, yeah.
the one with Ben Folds, with a guest appearance by Joe Jackson for no discernible goddamn
That's
reason.
interesting.
But this is, I think, the quintessential sort of class warfare type song. And I was starting to make a list of songs that were kind of about like class and that. And this, as soon as I thought of this, I was like, nope, that's perfect.
Fantastic pick.
Yeah, that's great. Michael, your last attempt at winning the Murray.
My last hurrah for the Murray. It's Mods, aka Snobs, versus Rockers, aka Slobs.
You going
in
Quadrophenia?
1960s England. I'll talk about Quadrophenia, but I was
Okay.
I was
just,
more
just
cultural.
in general.
the general,
Okay.
the cultural back and forth, or the cultural antagonism of kind of counterculture British youth in the 60s, where on one side you had the Rockers. These were the kind of Marlon Brando, Rebel Without a Cause.
Kind of the greasers.
Wild Ones inspired greasers, pompadour haircuts, leather jackets. They're riding around on motorcycles. They like, kind of rockabilly and rock and roll. And on the other side, you have a little bit younger generation, the Mods, which are, they're into the Who.
Yeah.
And they're in clean
Sharkskin suits.
Yeah, clean cut suits. They're riding around on
Vespas.
and Lambrettas, and
They They look like they just stepped off of a film shoot with David Hemming or something like that.
Yeah, they're a newer generation. They're a little bit younger. They're a little bit hipper. They're into like soul music. They're into R&B.
They're very Austin Powers like.
And at some point in '64, things started getting a little crazy, and the mods and rockers started having
A feud in a seaside town? Yes.
over and over, like throughout the summer, which is what ultimately inspired the rock opera of Quadrophenia. And I just love the idea of these two classes of, basically a youth culture that were battling each other, that were still, I guaranteed, looked down upon by an even higher class. And in England, there is always a higher class.
No matter who you are, even the Queen has somebody who's higher up than you.
But I just like that within the subgroup, they were also still the ruffians and this subculture against an even higher.
Do you think that America in the 60s, and maybe it's England in the 60s, youth became this controlling culture? Before the 60s, youth weren't really empowered financially, and I think the world did not bow down toward young people. The world of entertainment today bows down toward young people to provide things that will please them, that they'll purchase. I think at some point, youth stepped out of this underclass and into this cultural upper class where they can control a mass amount of the economy through their purchasing and things like that.
All of a sudden, 20-year-olds could be millionaires.
Yeah, 20-year-olds could be...
They didn't inherit the money. They made it because they were pop stars.
Yeah, or like they could get jobs. They could make almost as much as their parents if their parents were still working. But it seems like what happened, obviously in England, they have actual caste system, and in the U.S. maybe less so. But I think the economy changed so that young people have more power, So and with after like the 60s and protests and things like that could probably change the world politically. It's shown that was changed a little bit. But yeah, when you've got a country with a queen and dukes and royalty,
doesn't matter how high you get. They can still knight you.
Yeah.
At some point, they are appointing you to a higher class. Not that high.
I love how Quadrophenia ends with the Sting, who's essentially playing King of the Mods. They go and find him working as a valet or something at a hotel, and this kid realizes, Jimmy, I forget who realizes that his idol is a complete asshole.
Right.
He's been worshiping a false idol. What a lively discussion this has been, this Slobs versus Snobs. And this has actually taken many directions I had no idea it would take, into cultural, into athletics. I kind of had my lens kind of focused more on movies and things. So the one I want to name check is actually mentioned by Michael, and I love it because of what its complete authenticity, even though I've learned that some of the story was a little bit cooked, but Breaking Away, which you brought up, and I imagine your wife, Emily, being from Indiana, that might be something that they...
And she went to IU, and the whole...
And she rides a bike.
Like the little five thing is like a big thing every year and has been.
Is it?
Like the legend of the Cutters is, it's slightly different than what happened on screen.
Yeah.
But, everything that's...
Yeah, I just love how authentic that movie felt, and how eccentric these characters were, even though they were in a lowly Midwestern town. There's this kid who longs to be Italian, longs to be from another world, and then the depiction of the townies versus the Cutters versus the students was really clear and robust, and how it was multi-generational. And Paul Dooley, as the father, explains to his kid that these working class people who didn't go to school, who built this darn town, were always looked down upon. I just loved it. And then to read that, Cutters was a totally made-up name, that they normally were just called stoners or stonies because they cut stone.
Well, it's funny because you think about that. It's like they probably went away from stoners because of the connotation.
The drug implication.
And now if you did that today, there's no way you would have the team called Cutters.
Yeah.
Unless they were listening to like an emo while they're listening or writing or something.
But just such a fun movie. I think Daniel Stern's first role
Yeah.
So I dug that just because it was one of my first Slobs versus Snobs that was kind of in the form of a drama. It was very comedic, but kind of a drama. Okay, now I have the dubious honor of judging this Rushmore here, and I guess that makes me the snobbish establishment. So I love both your lists. Slobs versus Snobs is about people battling within the confines of an institution and changing its geography through that battle. And Richard, you did such a great job of describing the battlers, whether it's redneck John Daly or Jarvis Cocker or Bill Murray. And Michael, you did a great job of showing what the institution and how that's a character, like San Angeles and Britain in the 60s, or like the golf course in Caddyshack. Seems like you were tracing the geography a little bit more than Richard. But you both are assholes because you proved me wrong on my statement that Slobs versus Snobs is distinctly American by picking some British examples. So screw you both. I'm kicking you out of the country club because I'm the establishment and you're trying to take me down a peg. Okay, so that's what you guys did. So this is how I'm picking it. Meatballs was my first choice. I think something that definitely kicked off the Slobs versus Snobs genre, or actually was the second salvo after Animal House, and set the standard to have that monologue, or furthered the standard to have that monologue. Caddyshack, second choice, I think made a really good point. Do we really need to talk about Caddyshack or Animal House? I guess we kind of do to kind of restore their them in memory because they've been so long ago since they were made. And then Richard's depiction of this Dionysian bacchanalian character of John Daly. He just seems like somebody who was in his cups like Falstaff on the golf course or something.
Pretty much King Lear, but
yeah.
with a big old gut and 3-pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then just so, Richard expanding always tries to find, we could talk about French poetry from the 1700s, and he would say there's a baseball player who...
Right.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Ozzie Smith.
Bringing sports into it. But then Mods and Rockers, I mean, how cool is that? So I think it looks like, am I right?
I think we're chopping Bill Murray in half.
Chop Bill Murray in half.
You can have the Murray portion.
You want the Bill part?
Okay.
That sounds deal.
All right, this has been Slobs.
As a resident snob, I'll take the Bill.
And I guess, I'll take the Murray.
There are a lot of story elements mentioned in this Slobs versus Snobs discussion, and the next Mount Rushmore will mention a story element that some who went to film school, or maybe not, might be familiar with, and that is Deus Ex Machina, God by Machine. We're going to be discussing those in all the iterations that they occur. So tune in next time. This is Rushmore. I've been Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
We're all gonna get laid.